Welcome to our second annual Mega Wellness Summit, where we are transforming lives one aha moment at a time. I'm your host, Nikki Jencen, and thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this event with your friends and family. A few months ago, I started a school for women called Women's Wellness Academy. I created this school because I saw a huge need for women to be able to care for their children naturally and holistically. The need out there to educate women is incredible. I just received an email from one of my students asking how to heal strep throat naturally. So many mothers turn to medical doctors because it's covered by their insurance, and they hope to have someone help them with their child's health. But the only medicinal tool in regular doctors' toolboxes are pharmaceutical drugs. Don't get me wrong, there is a time and a place for that, but 90% of ailments can and should be healed naturally. Educating women and mothers is the pathway to changing and shifting our future for the better. My guest today shares the same passion, helping women, especially young women. She's empowering women to live their best life, and that is something I'm all about. She ignites a fire of change in women, and her name is Katie Dalebout. Welcome, Katie.
Welcome to my Wellness Wonderland. My name is Katie, and today I have a present just for you. Actually, that's a bit of a stretch. It's a little bit for me too, because the gift that I'm sharing with you today is inspiration. And as I'm sure you know, and Oprah definitely knows, when you find something, whether it's a new restaurant or a new blog or a video or whatever that really inspires you and makes you feel happy, all you want to do is share it. You want to share it with your friends and your family and anyone who will listen, basically. And that's definitely the case for me. I literally had to start a blog called The Wellness Wonderland because I was so into and inspired all things holistic wellness. That means mind, that means body, that means soul, that means spirit, that means pleasure, that means everything. And this space, The Wellness Wonderland, this online internet stratosphere, is a place where I share in real time all of the things that inspire me, and it's an equal opportunity inspiration zone, basically. So I believe that inspiration can come from movies and TV shows just as easily as it can come from a cab driver or a spiritual guru or teacher or yoga class. It's everywhere. All we have to do is be present and open to receive it, because if you're really focused on your computer typing at the coffee shop, you may not overhear that line of wisdom from the old man sitting behind you. So today,
thank you so much for being present with me today and inspiring women all over the world, really. And so, when we talk about inspiring women, what gets you about really helping this planet shift and move with women? What is it about them that inspires you?
So I think women, there's the Dalai Lama said that the world will be saved by the Western woman, and I think women are these wonderful creative beings, right? We're so crafty, we can make people, right? So I think there's so much beauty in feminine energy and in the divine feminine that's within all of us, and utilizing that creative energy in ways that feel really awesome and productive to us, I think is really crucial and fantastic, and I think it's within all of us. And Brené Brown has this quote where she says, unused creativity is not benign. So I really take that as we should always be wanting to express our creativity in some way, whether that's having a creative conversation like we're having right now, or drawing or doing pottery or writing or speaking, or just expressing yourself in some way that feels good to you. And I think that that is how women empower themselves and each other through their creativity.
Absolutely. And, speaking of creativity, is that you wrote a book called Let It Out, A Journey Through Journaling, right?
Yes, I did. It comes out April 5th of this year, and I am so excited about it.
Woohoo! That's awesome. And I love journaling. I think journaling definitely changes lives. And so tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so my book is really interesting. It's a guidebook, so it's very interactive. It's 55 journaling exercises, so prompts that will actually guide people through exercises in different areas. So there's tools about getting organized, there's tools about releasing clutter, there's tools about creativity and relationships and physical health and healing and everything under the sun, basically. And some of them are really fun and interactive, like a scavenger hunt. Some of them are more reflective and deeper and serious. And it's just this nice variation of all of them. And it really helps people get started with journaling because, like you said, and I agree, journaling is a fantastic tool. I often say, and I think I say in the book, that I don't know how I'm feeling or what my emotions are or what I'm thinking unless I'm writing. Because I have so many thoughts in my mind that it's a really great way to sort through them and then decide, which ones are true, which ones do I want to believe, which ones are just old negative thought patterns and beliefs I've picked up like Velcro since childhood and are just replaying in my life. And so journaling is a great way to actually see what's going on with yourself. And I started to give that advice of journaling to my clients and people who read my blog and listened to my podcast. And a lot of them were saying, oh, that's great, but I don't have anything to say. If I sat down to journal, nothing would come out. I don't have anything to say. I can't do that. And so my reaction to that was telling them, just ask a good question. Just ask a good question and you'll get a good answer. And so I wrote a book of good questions, but really people can start right now even without the book. If you want a guidebook, it's great, but you can start right now without the guidebook by simply, asking yourself an interesting question, talking to your intuition. If you ask a good question, you'll get a good answer. And that's my biggest advice for people starting journaling.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, I started journaling because I was really stuck in my life where I lived in Wisconsin. I'm originally from LA, and I couldn't live there anymore. I was literally going crazy, and I knew that there was something better out there for me. And so I started journaling, and lo and behold, it took 3 years. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it took a long time to shift my life, but I ended up moving back home to California, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done. But you're right. I mean, just by writing, through changing your thoughts and your actions is so profound in really shifting the course of your life.
Yeah, definitely. I obviously couldn't agree more.
You struggled with an eating disorder earlier in your life, in your 20s. Is that correct?
Yes.
How did that shape your life and where you are today?
I think that really brought me to understand and getting to know myself better, because I had to, through healing that, I was led to therapy and coaches and healing in a lot of different ways. And so it really opened me up to get to know myself better, because I had to. And that was a really big blessing, to be honest, that came from it, because everything before that, I just kind of, went through life wearing a lot of masks, and this really forced me to get to know myself on a deeper level, on any level at all, actually. And so I'm really grateful for it in that way. And, practically, from a practical sense, through my therapy and through my coaches, I got into the world of self-help and personal development and personal growth, and had a lot of mentors in that area. So I realized that, this career path for me even existed. And that's how I, figured out that journaling works for me, and figured out, the tools that worked for me that were really effective. So that that's what really, helps there. And something I haven't really thought of it like this before, and I haven't really talked about this, but, when I was healing that, I had a lot of, like I was saying, coaches and therapists, and I would journal to them a lot. Like, I would send them a lot of emails and telling them how I was feeling and, what I was going through, and asking them a lot of questions, and, just really, like, expressing myself to these people that I trusted and I admired in a lot of ways. And that was fantastic because it helped me to feel heard. It gave me this platform to feel heard in this non-judgmental way. I knew that they had my best interest at heart. I knew that they wanted to see me thrive, and it was of their best interest to see me thrive and grow. And I was really in a dark place, and so it was, they were trying to help me, and it was their job to help me, so I could be super vulnerable with them in my writing and in what I said to them. And so journaling became a way for me to do that with myself. Your journal is like the most non-judgmental friend you could ever have, and even things that I'm too afraid to say to a therapist or to a coach or to a very close friend or family member, I could say in my journal without fear of judgment or having to tweak or change anything. I could be completely raw and real, however I felt, however dark that was. So that's one thing, that going through that experience really gave me. And, and I'm still, it's a long journey to heal any of that, I think there's lingering body image stuff that I still am working through. And, I hope that in 10 years I'll be, way ahead of where I am now. And I'm leaps and bounds ahead of where I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even a year ago. And so I anticipate that, in 1 year and 5 years, I'll be even more ahead with that than I am now. But it's a journey, and it's winding, and it's not linear. It's, 5 steps forward and 10 back, and then 20 forward and 3 back, So it's really interesting, but it's all part of it. It's all part of this tapestry that we weave together that becomes our lives. And, all these different beautiful struggles become our story and become our wholeness. And I wouldn't change any of them. I wouldn't go back and do anything differently.
I love that. I love that you don't really look at your struggles as something, as a bad thing, as we all would. We all look at our life, not all of us, but we all look at our life like, whatever happened to us, we can play the victim role. And you said, well, my struggle with an eating disorder is actually a blessing. So my hope, and for many people out there, that they are inspired by that they can say, well, you know what? My cancer is a blessing. My whatever ailment's going on in their life is then turned around. Like for me, it's I've had struggles with my health, but not only that, I've had some more financial struggles. So through that, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate with that, is that, okay, I'm actually grateful for this right now being present in my life, because I'm truly, truly thankful for everything I have right now. And so that is what I am learning about, being grateful and having inspiration, and through journaling. I really do feel that through your struggle with your eating disorder, that I think it's beautiful that you see the good in it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks. My body image stuff is and was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it's also the worst thing that ever happened to me, And I wish that I didn't have it every day, but I'm so grateful that I have it at the same time, because it teaches me so much. And it's I was listening to a podcast earlier today about this woman who wrote a book about depression and her struggles with depression. And she was saying that, if they came up with a drug that completely got rid of her depression 100%, she didn't know she would want it because she didn't know if she would be the writer and creator that she is, because it brought her something. And I don't, I don't think that artists need to like struggle and have addictions and be sad. I don't buy that. But I do think that there's something to our struggles give us experience and make us really beautiful, and they're really important. And I was having a conversation with my coach recently where I was having a what I call a bad body image day, right? Like I was not feeling great about myself or whatever, and we were just, chatting about this because it was a struggle that she's had, in her life too, and many women do. And she was saying, we were saying that this was our big thing, but if it wasn't this, it'd be something else, because we were saying that there are so many women, not so many, but there are some women who just don't struggle with this. It's just like isn't a thing for them. They don't have an issue with it. But if that was the case for us, like it would be something else. It would be a financial thing or be a relationship thing, like it's like whack-a-mole. Like if it wasn't this, it'd be something else. And this is just what mine is. And acceptance of what is for you is crucial and key and really the only thing to give you peace in your life. That's been the case for me.
I met a woman who was about 50 or 55 years old, and she came to me because she wanted to stop eating gluten, and because I'm a gluten-free paleo chef, and so she said, I want to stop eating gluten, and I want to eat better, Nikki. She goes, but my problem is that I have a problem with bulimia, and I was really thrown back because I really put anorexia, bulimia, orthorexia all in this little box of being young, and that was something that teenagers struggled with. But then when she came to me and she opened up and said, I'm a bulimic, I have a problem, and I don't know what to do with it, but I know that I want to get healthy. I can't change my ways. And so I never had dealt with an eating disorder besides just loving food to death and eating so much of it, which could be a sign of an eating disorder in a different way. I said to her, you have to start with loving yourself first, and not looking at what it's called, and it's a form of self-punishment is how I look at it. And so how do you look at eating disorders in that way? And what would you say to the woman coming to you who is in her 50s and saying, I'd like to change my ways, but I have a problem with being a bulimic?
Right. Well, first of all, I'll address it, but it's like a really complicated issue that's so individual to so many different people. And
right.
I do think that working with a professional who is very equipped in eating disorders, a therapist or nutritionist that has worked with eating disorders and practices something called health at every size, I think is really important. And my friend Christy Harrison and also a mentor of mine, Isabel Foxen-Duke, are great people. So to be honest, if it was something really intense, I would refer them to them. However, the main thing is they have to want it. That's the first step. If someone doesn't want to change, no one telling them anything can do it for them. That was the case for me. Like, I wanted to be able to eat normally, but I also wanted my weight to stay the same. Or I was okay with gaining like 5 pounds or 10 pounds, but I was terrified of more than that, right? Or I was terrified of the future of what that would bring if my body would change as I got older. Like, I was so paralyzed by the fear of that I didn't want to change my ways at all. So I think you have to be really ready and willing, and you have to, like, surrender. You have to literally surrender and just be like, my body is going to be what it's going to be. It's out of my control. You know, like, we think that our bodies are so much in our control, but in reality, it's really not, right? Like, our life circumstances could change, so we're eating more than we normally would, or from different circumstances emotionally, and that it might not be in our control, or, you know, what we're eating might change, you know, like, health is kind of becoming a class system in our country right now where it's polarizing because it's expensive to have the personal trainer. It's expensive to buy your gluten-free, organic, special food and prepare it to have the time to do that. That's expensive, and busy women, busy moms might not have the time or the money or the resources to do that. You know, I know my mom didn't when I grew up, and it wasn't a priority for her because she had a lot of other things to be a priority for herself. And so she didn't, so her priority wasn't making her body really perfect. Her priority was making sure her daughter was okay and had everything I ever needed. And she put me and her work to provide for me ahead of herself. And that's what I saw. That's what I witnessed. And that was the example that was set for me, you know. And so I'm having to, you know, I want to change that. You know, I honor her, and I think that that's brilliant and amazing, but I want to change that pattern in myself and, like, amp up my own self-care as now, it's funny, as an example for her, you know. My mom's in her 50s, and I want her to see the example from me of self-care and taking care of yourself, because that wasn't modeled for me because she so lovingly put my well-being ahead of hers. And I think that's really common for mothers. And again, I can't relate to that yet, but I'm sure when I'm a mother, to be honest, I'll probably, if I ever become a mother, I'll probably do the same thing. You know, like, I don't know what that situation is like, but I imagine it's, you know, it is something that does happen. And so I think, you know, just being really gentle with yourself with whatever is going on, whether you're overeating, whether you're undereating, whether you're bulimic, like, it's all the same issue, which is you're not wanting to feel a feeling, right? So it's, you're denying a feeling you don't want to feel. So whether you're overeating, I'll say it again, or whether you're not eating, you're denying a feeling you don't want to feel. So whenever I'm turning to food for comfort, when I'm eating when I'm not hungry, it's not a bad thing. It's not, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not a bad person. All it means is that it's like, oh, something's up. Something's up in my life. It means I am emotionally turning to something for comfort because I need to be comforted because there's a feeling I don't want to feel that I'm denying, or I'm stressed, or it's something that I don't want to feel, so I'm doing something else and to protect myself, right? And it's the same thing when I used to do it the other way, right? So when I was restricting and I was very, very disciplined with my restriction, it was, I didn't want to feel what was going on in my life. My life felt out of control, so I decided to control what I could, what I thought I could, by rigidly controlling my food and my body and my weight and my workouts and everything so much, so I didn't have to feel the feeling, right? I could just focus on that. And so it's the same thing. So the biggest thing, you know, people are struggling with, you know, any type of disordered eating, you know, and I believe that disordered eating is on a spectrum, right? So you don't have to be super underweight to have an eating disorder. You don't have to be bulimic to have an eating disorder. You can just be, you know, choosing to not eat certain foods because you're scared of them and what they'll do to your body, or you can be, you know, not eating normally. You know, a normal eater, there's a great definition by someone named Ellen Satter in a book, I think it's called Feeding Your Family or something like that. It's a great book. And she says in there, you know, normal eating is eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're full most of the time. Most of the time is key. There will be times where normal eaters overeat because the cookies are just so good. And there'll be other times where they undereat because they were really busy and didn't notice, right? Like, that is normal eating. You know, when women get into the dieting mentality for so many years, we shut off our intuitive eating signals. So we shut off our hunger and fullness, and And it's still there, but we just ignore it. We don't shut it off. We just ignore it. And we're like, don't eat, don't eat, don't eat, don't eat, don't eat. And then that, like, backfires, and then it's like, I'm going to eat all of the things, right? Because and then it's a cycle. And then you're like, you feel bad about that. You feel guilt about that. So you start the diet again. And you're on the high from the new diet. And then you sit on your hands for long enough, as long as you possibly can. And then you binge. And then you feel bad about the binge. You feel guilt. And you feel shame. And you go on another diet. And you feel high from the diet at first because it's this new day. There's a after from the before picture coming soon, right? You're so excited. You're so jazzed. And then inevitably it fails. So you have to be ready to end that diet binge cycle. You have to be ready to, you know, do something radically different than you've done before and be like, my body's just going to be what it's going to be. It might be bigger than I want it to be. Like, that was the case for me, that, like, when I actually truly embraced normal eating and stopped controlling my diet and my food, like, my weight, I don't look like an Olsen twin, you know, which is like what I wanted for my whole life and what I did look like when I was underweight. But, like, that's not my body type, you know, and I don't look like a runway model because I'm not 6 feet tall, and it's just not how I was born, you know. And so I'm just embracing the fact that, like, this is my body and this is how it's going to be. And that is not easy. That is body image work. So what this really comes down to after all of that is doing the body image work, is being okay with yourself. Because once you start feeling your feelings and once you start actually doing this work and feeding yourself and doing that part, the next piece is doing the body image work to be okay with whatever comes. And that is deep work that I'm still on. And I will be on, you know, maybe for the rest of my life, maybe not. But I think our society forces us into body image work because, unfortunately, the media and our culture idealizes one body size because of the standard of beauty that we have. So our culture idealizes thinness. It says that thinness is beautiful and fat is bad, right? Like, think about even Disney movies, like The Little Mermaid. The only fat character in that is Ursula, and she's evil, right? And I've never seen another fat character in a Disney movie. So it's showing us that, like, this type of body shape is good and this type of body shape is bad. And really understanding that maybe that's just the culture. You know, hundreds of years ago, what was considered beautiful was, like, a thicker body shape because that was difficult to attain and that cost money and resources to attain. Whereas now, what costs money and resources to attain, just like we were talking about before, is a thin body shape. And so that is revered and that is looked to as beautiful. So just really understanding from, like, a cultural perspective, looking at this from a sociological lens, it really helps you to understand and question, you know, is this actually how it has to be? Like, can I like myself the way that I am today? Can I at least accept myself the way that I am today? And maybe that'll change. Maybe your weight will change. Maybe it won't. But accepting yourself is key.
How much does it have to do about weight? And how much does it have to do about our thoughts clouding our minds?
So, I mean, I think none of it has to do with weight. I think your health doesn't have to do with weight. If you look at, there's a doctor, or many doctors doing this work, but there's a doctor by the name of Linda Bacon, and she has done so many studies about BMI and about that really it's crap, and that people can be healthy in thicker bodies and people can be really unhealthy in thinner bodies. Like, it has no basis on size and weight, but people are discriminated on the basis of size and weight, which then makes people unhealthy. Because if you're discriminated by the way that you look by society, that's going to impact your thoughts and your mind, and that's going to impact your health more than, you know, your actual weight even will. So that's, you know, an interesting point. And then, you know, I think that the thoughts in your mind are everything. They're everything. They're, you know, they will dictate how you feel about yourself, and so then how you feel about yourself will dictate the actions that you take. So your feelings dictate your emotions dictate your feelings, and then your feelings dictate your actions. You know, if you're feeling, like, I'll tell, like, an anecdote about this myself. Like, if I'm having a bad body image day and I just feel really, like, bad about myself and I'm just like, oh, I'm so ugly and blah, blah, blah. Like, this happened to me, like, a couple months ago where I was, like, in my bar class and I woke up, I was feeling good, and there were mirrors in there, and I just did not like the yoga outfit I was wearing or something, and I just was ugh, I do not like the way I'm looking right now. And instead, you would think maybe that would make me push myself harder in the class. But what happened, and I was just ugh, this is terrible. I just want this to be over. And I didn't push myself in the class at all. I felt like I shouldn't have even been there. I was really just calling it in, right? But then another day when I was there, and I was yeah, I feel good about myself. I feel strong today. I feel really great. I did great in the class, and I did the best I could, and I just felt good after. And I think that example right there, I know it's kind of a silly example and might sound really trite to people, but I think it's a good example because it really shows that if you feel good about yourself, you're probably going to make better choices. When I feel good about myself, I want to feed myself well. I want to take care of myself better. I want to exercise better. But when I feel really shitty about myself, I want to just stay in bed, and I don't feel productive. I don't want to call friends and get help. I don't want to talk to anyone. I want to just watch TV and eat in my bed, And so I think that really empowering yourself to know that when you feel good about yourself, when I feel confident, I will make choices that a confident person would make.
Our mind controls so much, and you went into that beautifully. Our thoughts are our actions, and I never really paid attention. I thought, well, if I can control the words that come out of my mouth, then I can control part of the destiny. But it's really shifting how you really speak to yourself as well as outwardly, in addition to your thoughts. So if your thoughts are to, if it's going to be a body image thing, then, you were at class, right? And you're going, oh man, I'm having a bad body image day. And all these words, oh, yuck, look at that, ugh, cellulite, oh, gross, oh, look at her body, so much better than my body.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the thoughts that are going to be controlling your actions and your moods and not bringing you fulfillment in your life. And so you're right by the fact that when you shift that over to, you know what, I love myself. I love the way that I look. Gosh, I've come so far. And reward yourself and love yourself for all the things that you've done in your life to come where you are today, to really honor your body. And I think a lot of women, we don't honor our body. Would you agree?
Totally.
Yeah. And I feel that it's so sad is that you're right, the Disney movies, the princesses, they're all so beautiful. And our mothers have been some of the mothers out there have been so harsh on our girls, and to say, well, they're not saying, oh, you're so beautiful. No, they're saying, look at that, look at what's on your face, or you go brush your hair, or you got to go change your clothes, or whatever it is. These things penetrate into our spirit, into our soul, and develop our nature as we grow. And so it's great to hear that come from you to say, well, look, there's a way that you can shift your mind, shift your spirit to where you can always have good body image days. And, we're going to have bad days, right? I mean, that's just the way that it goes. But I do believe that when we pump up our muscle, our mind muscle, our spirit muscle, that it allows for better days and allows for us to change humanity. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
Of course. Yeah, I think it's a conversation that needs to keep being had over and over and over again, because unfortunately we're getting the opposite message from the media and from society constantly. So having conversations like this is really crucial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to start with love and to know that that those thoughts are present, but they might not even be your own, right? Because like you said, we could be getting it from the media, from our parents, from at school, from other children. One example in my own life is I saw one of my best friends constantly criticize her body. And so it made me question, should I be criticizing my body? Should I not love my body? Because she doesn't love her body. She doesn't love her boobs. She doesn't love her stomach. She hates the way her skin looks. She always hated the way she looked. And, you know, it's so weird now that she's, you know, she's like a celebrity now. And it's just, she got her fake boobs. She has a great body. And, you know, I can guarantee you if I talk to her today, which I haven't talked to her in a few years, that she would still not be content with herself.
Yeah.
And, you know, as for me, you know, I love my body. I don't have a thing. I'm not going to allow my body or other people to dictate the thoughts around that. You know, but for her, it was really sad how I had to witness that. And it made me question as a young, vulnerable girl, should I be doing this too? Because there's so many women out there, or girls out there who hate themselves and hate their body. And her mom, I could definitely see was a big factor in that. So as you grew up, what was the factor for you not appreciating your body? What happened as a child to shape you, to shape your mind?
That's a great question, and I think I wish the answer was something simple, like a switch was turned off at a certain moment when some kid said something to me or something like that, but it really wasn't that. I don't have a simple answer to it. I think it was like a lot of little things culminating, and it just kind of happened. I will say that, you know, growing up, my mom has always been heavy, and she was really great. Like, she never, you know, like, actively criticized her body around me, really, but it was, like, always there. Like, I knew that she never felt super comfortable with herself, you know, just by, like, not feeling great in her clothes and that sort of thing. But she always, like, made herself look amazing and still does, and she is beautiful and, like, the most amazing person ever. But, you know, I think that was picked up and passed down to me in some ways of, you know, just her having to put so much effort into her appearance because she didn't feel like, you know, naturally how she looked, felt how she did on the inside maybe. And that, you know, was maybe part of it. And so I think I just always assumed that, like, the fate of her and the fate of, you know, my family was just my fate, and I was just, like, around the corner from that. And I wanted to prevent that and be different by the way that I ate and the way that I looked. And I just wanted to differentiate myself because I felt very trapped in, like, this is the fate. This is how it's going to be. And I just wanted to remove myself from that. So, I mean, I think that was a huge factor. I think also, you know, growing up, just like most kids, you know, you struggle with mean girls and you struggle with, you know, not feeling included or liked, and that happened to me a lot as a kid, you know, like not getting invited to the birthday party or not, that sort of thing. And I don't know if I remember being dissatisfied with my body when I was very young. So I remember, you know, not when I was super young, but when I was about 10. I remember shopping for, like, first communion dresses, and I was a size 10, and all my friends were a size 8, which is, like, not a big difference, but I remember, like, it made me feel less than. Like, it made me feel not good enough. And I had an awareness, although it was very small, that, like, how much I ate had to do with, like, how I looked, you know? And so I think, like, I remember making this commitment to myself when I was very young that I was like, I should just try to eat a little less, because then that'll make me, because I had no consciousness about, like, what was good and what was bad, and, like, I don't even believe that things are good or bad like that even now, but like I had no concept of like healthy foods or not healthy foods. I just was like, I should eat as much as my friends or less. I should never eat more than them. And so I remember like I wasn't the biggest kid in class, but I was also not the smallest. I was like somewhere in the middle on the bigger side because I like was tall. I was like one of the taller girls in class. I'm not very tall now, but I think I've been this height since I was like 12 years old, like I like sprung up and then I just stopped growing. And I think that made me bigger or different looking, than some of my other friends in my class. And so I was always like, if I went over to a friend's house for pizza or something, I remember, if they had 2 pieces, I wasn't going to have 3 because, like, that would be weird and bad and, like, they would think I was fat, or something like that. So I would always, like, restrict myself when I wanted, like, 4, And so I think that diet mentality was, like, within me at a very young age, and then it just spiraled as I learned more about dieting. And I learned, oh, this is how I really get it to work. Oh, and if I don't eat anything except drink coffee and have a protein bar all day, then I can really do it. And then I could do these other unhealthy behaviors, and then I could, use all these health, in quotes, excuses, right, to diet, right? So it's like, I think in our society now, a lot of people, and I'll speak for myself, this is what I did, I used health as a mask for aesthetic weight loss. And I wanted to, I would say, oh, I'm just really healthy. I'm just a really healthy girl. I don't eat that because I'm really healthy. I don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy. I don't eat meat. I don't eat anything basically except vegetables. And it gave me an excuse to not eat by saying I was really healthy. And I think the interesting thing is, like, in the past, like in the 90s, people looked at health very differently than they looked at weight loss. Like, it was like low fat and, Diet Coke and that sort of thing. And it was very clear that they were dieting, right? They were like calling a spade a spade. Whereas like now with the health movement, a lot of people like hide under the veil of health when really what they're wanting is they're doing the juice cleanse not to be healthy, not to cleanse, but to drop a size, quickly.
Right.
And, like a socially acceptable way to starve yourself or a way to like not eat the breadbasket or whatever. And so I think, that's when I really got into health, I was able to be like, use it as an excuse for extreme weight loss. And I did, and it was very effective. And then but it wasn't sustainable. I was in a really bad place with that. So yeah, I mean, I think it was a culmination of a lot of things growing up, and then when I figured out how I could do it, I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to try to do this forever, and I could.
I don't know if people understand what the term orthorexia means because it's fairly it's fairly new to me. Probably in the last 10 years or so, it's been coined as that. Extreme healthy eating. And just as you described, I don't eat gluten, I don't eat dairy, I don't eat meat, I only eat vegetables. And you're so restrictive on yourself, that is orthorexia. So you didn't really restrict eating, like you wouldn't go for long periods of time without eating like anorexic, correct?
Well, I mean, my case of it was when I was actually diagnosed by, my doctor, it was technically anorexia because, like you said, in the DSM, which is like this book, I don't even know what that stands for, but basically it's this book that has all the disorders, right? Like the medically defined disorders. Orthorexia wasn't in there at the time. It is now, but at the time for me, and that wasn't even that many years ago, it wasn't in there. So I was technically diagnosed with anorexia, but it was kind of a combination of both. And it's a very slippery slope because, yeah, like you said, I was eating, largely I was eating, but I was just very controlled about what I was eating and how much. And so it was very, very little. But before I really got into, orthorexia and really health, like health foods and superfoods and, controlling my portions to be the certain way and doing all of that, I was doing the restricting like I was talking about before. That was just like very little eating and more traditional dieting, what people think about. And that kind of started the weight loss. So that's how it was for me. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think lots of people can kind of do both. I think orthorexia and anorexia are very similar because when you're controlling your food with healthy, quote unquote, healthy foods, you can see the results oh, this made me lose a lot of weight. Maybe I just won't eat a lot at all, and I'll just, restrict some more. Because I think, when you see progress, you're like, ooh, this is what I could do. I could do more of this, and that, if people talk about this is terrible, but when they get sick, when they have the flu and they lose some weight from it, they're like, ooh, I could just keep doing this,
Totally.
And that's kind of what happens. It's you see the results, oh, I'll just do more. It kind of propels you of you get, and it's the person who ran the 4-minute mile, right? It's nobody could run the 4-minute mile, and then one guy does, and then everybody does. It's the same thing. You're you think you can't lose the weight, and then you do, and you're ooh, I'll just do more of this and more of this until it becomes unhealthy. And I think the distinction between, being a healthy person and eating lots of healthy foods, which I do now, now, years after all of that, I still, love to drink green juice, and I love me some, avocado as much as the next guy. But the difference between now and then is that I don't beat myself up if I don't eat that way. And I am just more chill about it. And it's, the really the distinction with orthorexia is that it becomes a mental disorder when you're obsessing about only eating the healthy foods, and you make yourself bad or wrong when you're not, and you're trying to adhere to something, so you're scared of what would happen if you ate some gluten, or you didn't have this perfectly food combined meal, or you ate something that made you bloated would be the end of the world, that sort of thing.
That was truly inspiring, especially on a wellness summit, because here we are, we're talking about all the things that you should be doing, which could make somebody absolutely crazy with, don't eat gluten, gluten is bad. Don't eat grain because grain is bad. Don't eat meat because meat is bad. And so what we do is we start wrapping and getting so consumed with all these things that are bad for us, and we stop really living and just going, okay, just relax. Just be conscious of it. Just allow your body to, don't punish yourself with food, but allow your body to eat what it wants to eat in moderation. I've interviewed a lot of people, a lot of experts. And so I think that there's this dichotomy in the health business about what should we be eating and what is healthy for us, and ultimately we determine what is healthy. And that is why I'm doing Mega Wellness Summit differently this year, is because last year was all about what is bad and what we shouldn't be eating. And this year I want to really ignite a different viewpoint on health and wellness, that, you know what, journaling is part of our wellness. And you know what, integrate different methods of bringing light and enjoyment to your life. That, you know what, take enjoyment in a piece of pizza now and then. Take enjoyment of having some bread. There is a commercial. I love Oprah Winfrey. I love her to death. Oh, she has been a huge idol in my life, inspiration in my life. I want to be just like her, okay? She did. I'm a gluten-free, fanatic. Don't get me wrong. I am. And there is a commercial, and it starts out, I love bread. I have bread every day. And so what that did for me is it caused some negative thoughts to jump into my brain, because I don't want, I want people to not totally be influenced by that. Well, Oprah eats bread every day, so I'm going to eat bread every day. But here's the thing, and it's eating bread for weight loss is what she's trying to convey, is that, you know, it's like, I love bread and you should eat bread. And no, it's what we should be doing is listening to our own body. Don't go to Weight Watchers to lose weight. You have to tune in. Hey, start journaling, right? Start really going inward and finding out who you are. Find Katie's book. Go buy her book. And really put into practice getting to know yourself. Who are you? That is a huge question that not many can answer. And so I do believe that journaling is an extremely powerful tool for our mind, body, and spirit. So if you could take us out, Katie, if you can give us 3 techniques in regards to really journaling for the spirit, what would you say?
I mean, the main first thing I would say, just stop beating yourself up. You know, I mean, just maybe not making weight loss the goal. And what if maybe you don't need to lose the weight? What if you're okay with, what if you find acceptance for how you are? So journal about that. Like if you had to choose, let's just say for the sake of argument, you had to choose between your body looking a certain way or your life as a whole looking a certain way, where you have your dream relationship, your dream career, your dream house, your dream, you know, family, everything you could ever imagine, you could ever want in your life, but your body stayed exactly as it was today. Would you care, right? Like, write about that. Really get honest with yourself, because we don't really care about being thin in a vacuum. We don't really care about being thin on a deserted island when no one would ever see us. We care about being thin because of what we think thin means. We care about being thin because of how we think people will treat us, and largely how people do treat us in society, because I was treated differently when I was thinner, when I was underweight. People gave me compliments and said, you look so good, when I was really sick, because that's how sick our society is, that we idolize thinness to this degree that is so unhealthy, and we, you know, villainize fatness to a degree that is so unhealthy. And really just understanding that, like, you're not wrong for how you look. You don't need to look a certain way, and being okay with how you look today, whatever that is, fat, thin, or in between, and writing about that and getting honest, like questioning, you know, what are your motives? Why do you want to change how you look so much that you're willing to completely alter your body through maybe unhealthy means, or maybe just not living your life fully? So write about that. And then another thing, you know, to think about and write about is, you know, maybe those extra 5 pounds on your body are that lovely slice of cake on your wedding day, and, you know, when your partner brought home chocolate-covered strawberries, and eating Christmas dinner with your family, and, you know, your beautiful lunch you had with your best girlfriend. Like, maybe you don't want to give up those 5 pounds, because those things are wonderful, beautiful experiences in life, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's being militant and being healthy and being perfect all the time is maybe overrated, and maybe it's great to do that most of the time, but that 20% of just enjoying life and not thinking about it so much is also really important and also really crucial. And I think thinking about that is really important. So writing about that would be good. And then, you know, doing something creative, getting out of your head, like thinking about health and fitness and weight loss is so boring. There's like there's so many other beautiful things in the world. And so, you know, I love health and wellness myself too. You know, heck, I have a blog called The Wellness Wonderland, but there's so much more to life. And I used to be so laser focused on that one area that dieting became my hobby. Health and fitness became my hobby. I didn't have any other hobbies or any other creative outlets. So I didn't know who I was without those things. It was my identity. So journal about, what can you do instead of focusing on that stuff. You have to find new hobbies and new interests, because if you don't, you'll just stay focused on that. And, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's so much more out there, and you're missing, by spending all your time trying to control your weight, you're missing living your life.
Amen. Fantastic. I love that, Katie. Thank you so much. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You are such a delight, and I really appreciate you being on Mega Wellness Summit and being a part of shifting humanity and changing lives and inspiring women, inspiring the planet, that we're going to shift and make this place a lighter, brighter place to be in. And no matter what evil comes our way, we are able to shine our light bright and be a force of change, and that we are powerful beings. So thank you so much. You inspire me every day. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a delight. You are delightful, and I'm really happy that I was able to share and be so real and talk about this stuff. So thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you for being so open, because it's hard to talk about personal situations, but at the same time you're being a vessel, a vehicle for change. And so, we have to open up our lives and be an example. So thank you for being an example for that. And I know other women are struggling a lot with body images especially. So thank you, and I'd love to have you back on. And so we'll talk about that for next time.
Cool. Can't wait. Talk to you soon.